Welcome to another Creative Spin podcast, and today I have the one, the only, Anna Fernandes-Iria. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
How's it going?
It's going very well. How are you?
You know, full of energy, always.
Yeah, always.
As usual.
Yes.
As per the usual.
Yes.
I mean, it's been quite a while that we've been doing podcasts, man. So the energy has to be here,
it needs
right?
to be there.
You need to be ready for
It's one of the main secrets behind podcasting. You've got to have energy.
You have to have that energy going. Once that button turns into red, you need to kind of just bring it all in and you know, you got to go in with your soul, with your body, your mind.
But I have to say that most of the times we are like that with or without a red button. So
true, very true,
you know,
very true.
So
but now we're getting more and more used to using this red button, to using these mics, and to using this setting that we have going on here.
I know we've come a long way.
I know we've been doing a lot of stuff, but today we're going to be talking about what it has been like to record 70 Creative Spin podcast episodes.
Oh, this is number 70?
This is number 70.
Wow.
The number 707.
It's always magical for you.
Always, the number 7 is always there. So I even made notes.
Wow.
This is how important this podcast is. We want to talk about the equipment that we use here, or that we've been using, that we are using, and is it really important? Is it not important? What's been good? What's been bad? We're going to talk about all of that stuff. So if you're thinking about doing a podcast yourself, stay tuned. This is going to be good news for you because you don't have to go through the experiences that we've gone through.
We'll teach you a few lessons.
We'll just bring you the experience to you so that you don't have to go through it. We're also going to be talking about all the topics that we kind of featured on our podcast. Kind of go over about, you know, what you have to do with guests, how to book them, how to interview them, and that.
And how important they are.
And then obviously the marketing side of your podcast and how and what you should be doing to your podcast. So let's hit that intro and get into the conversation.
Welcome to another episode of the Creative Spin podcast. Buckle up, you're in for a show.
And we're back. That was quick. Anna, what do you think? 70 episodes. Seems like it was yesterday.
Milestone. I know. It's been, what, 2 years?
Actually, it's been more or less 2 years. Yeah, I made a note. I went back to our channel and I went to go check. We started the first episode for the Creative Spin podcast was on January 11th, 2019.
Wow.
So we did 70 episodes in 2 years, which is pretty good.
It's pretty awesome.
You
So
know,
much has happened.
I know. I mean, we've even got the pre-pandemic, the during pandemic, and hopefully we'll get the post-pandemic.
We're still in the during kind of pandemic.
Yeah, hopefully the past pandemic will be here as well. Entertaining you guys.
It also served as a lesson for us on how we had to reimagine and reinvent the way we were doing podcasts, especially with guests.
No, absolutely. Right? We had to change things a little bit. We started doing a lot more just the two of us.
Oh boy. No, stop.
Okay,
Continue.
all right. But you know, things change and you need to adapt to that, and you can't let things stop, right?
Yeah.
We went through that little weird phase, and that's why we weren't so consistent with the podcast. It wasn't because we didn't want to. It was, you know, when the whole crazy wave of the pandemic came in.
We got overwhelmed too.
There was a lot of changes,
Yeah.
right? We had to do a lot of changes in our business because of the whole situation.
And our personal lives, everyone's in general, got really affected by
No, absolutely. I mean,
the
kids
entire
being
thing, right?
Kids being at home, homeschooling, you know, teaching from home.
Yeah, I was doing teaching from home as
working,
well. It
like,
was like, yeah,
the whole dynamics, and obviously you, the audience, you know exactly what we're going through because it affected everybody.
Yeah.
In a different way. Everybody has been affected, and that's kind of like, it's not an excuse. It's just life changed, and we had to kind of find our cadence through the changed lifestyle that we now have, and now I think we're now back to figuring things out.
We didn't stop. We just took longer breaks.
Yeah, it was it was longer breaks, but it is what it is. I think with a lot of this, people, when they get into a podcast zone and they want to record podcasts, it is very important to have your consistency when it comes to coming out with your podcasts and being able to say, okay, you know what, every Thursday, like it was our case, we're gonna have a podcast every Thursday. That's great, but
be consistent.
Absolutely, consistency is king when it comes to being able to acquire a good audience and get them used to knowing that every so often you're gonna be there, that day, that hour, whatever it is that you decide to do. But I want to make sure that people also understand that nothing is set on stone. Things change.
Yeah.
Even when you look at older media like TV and all of that, we had programs that were set on that particular day of the week and all of that. But here comes a new season, and sometimes they have to change.
They have to change.
You know, it's no longer at 7; it's going to be at 6 or at 5.
And
whatever.
a lot of times, if there's like breaking news, they will stop whatever is being broadcasted to focus on that because it's unexpected things.
And this
right?
is kind of what happened with ours. Is we had to kind of shift things and make our lives work in cadence with the podcast, and that's basically where we're at right now. Today's podcast is brought to you by Workplace One, a company offering boutique private offices, co-working spaces, and virtual office solutions, as well as meeting rooms in the best neighborhoods of Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo. Ideal for entrepreneurs, companies, and passionate business people. Workplace One is where you want to be with your business. For more information, go over to workplaceone.com. So, off the top of the show, I was saying that we're going to talk about equipment. So, let's go for this. Let's talk about equipment. I know this is more my forte.
That is your forte.
I'm a tech guy. I like the equipment. I like the...
I see the benefit of it, right? And every time, so for those people that don't know it, every time you walk in and you say, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get... Like, okay, what's next? But now that you have that equipment... I see why you get it, and I see the importance of it. Can I describe it my own way?
Well, now I'm going to do something here live on the show. Well, it's going to be edited, but I'm going to keep this in because it's fun. Speaking of technology, I just realized that our Google speaker is still kind of doing something in the back end, even though we can't have the music show up on our show. So I got to go, hey, Google, stop. There you go.
And there you go.
So now I just did that. Hey, technology, how's it going? Right?
I love
the way it works.
Too bad. I can mention the songs.
No, you can't. It's not the way it works, man.
And that is important to know when you're doing podcasts.
So, we're going to talk about equipment, but here's another important part. Just like Anna's saying, music. You got to be careful what kind of music you put on your podcast. You can't just go online and put your favorite song.
And even mentioning that it is,
no,
so and
that doesn't matter.
It won't do.
People, there's this thing called copyrights, and you got to be careful with that. Somebody owns the music, and you need
rightly
to,
so. It's
and
their
of course,
way of
that's
living.
the way they make money.
It's their livelihood. Yeah,
that's the way they make their money, and you need to respect that. So it's important for you not to think that you can just use any song on your podcast or any video for that matter when you put it onto YouTube. So there are many, many sites out there that you can get subscriptions to. You can buy songs. You can do all that. You can do it legally. We do it. We have a subscription on a website that we can download the songs from there. They're all copyrighted, and
it's the legal way to
do it and all that. So that's a good one. Now it's going back to equipment. When we started, the first podcasts, and those weren't even part of the Creative Spin podcast yet. That was me playing around with podcasting. I actually started doing it with my phone. And I want to really focus on that aspect because I feel like nowadays there's this pressure to have all the right equipment before you even start your podcast. And I want to make something very clear. The podcast equipment is important to make things sound and look good. Mm-hmm. But the most important part of a podcast is your content. It's what you're saying on that podcast. That is the most important part of the podcast. That is the thing.
Yeah.
If there's a thing.
It's the core.
That is the absolute core of the podcast. So don't let the lack of equipment that you might, be looking for equipment or whatever. Don't make that the excuse not to start the podcast.
Yeah.
Podcasts are becoming very, very popular. Everybody's getting into podcasting. And it's not just because you need to follow the herd because people are doing podcasts. You should do a podcast. It's not about that.
There are benefits to it.
It's just the damn benefits that you have around having a podcast and the attention you can get from your audience from having a podcast. There's a lot of beneficial aspects of a podcast that, you should be doing it. There can be a business side to having a podcast, and there can be a psychological side of having a podcast. Because if you really like to speak on the microphone and talk about your life and talk about your experiences and just talk about a topic that you might love, knowing that there are going to be people on the other end that might enjoy the story that you have
passion.
And share your passion. Exactly.
Yeah.
That is what's important as well. So it doesn't need to be just because I have a company, product, service, whatever it is, that I need a podcast. No, it can be just because I like building Lego sets. I'm looking at the Lego sets in the back there. That could be it. And that could be a fun podcast that you can have, talking about when you first started playing with your Legos and what you've done now. You're an adult and you still do Legos.
And whatever.
I know, I'm kind of going
in my case, I love sharing information about books because that's who I am, right?
So make sure that whatever podcast you start doing it because you love what you're doing or you love talking about that topic. Because if you don't, you're going to get into a position where you're going to have a mic in front of you and you're going to be talking about something that you don't really like, but you're kind of obligated to talk about it because that's the topic. And people will notice 100%.
Yeah.
This is very, it's very meta here, the voice. And if you add video, the image of when you're doing your podcast, it's going to be clear as crystal.
Oh, yeah.
People are going to pick it up, man.
And be genuine. And the best example is really that we've been doing this podcast together, but if you asked me now to describe the equipment you have, people would notice that I don't have that knowledge. I know how to use it. I don't have that knowledge. But
Anna
then
sits here
when
and
I
she
switch
talks.
it to you, you just start, describing it. But I think that's what it is, right? Like you need to feel comfortable. You need to be somewhat knowledgeable. If it's a passion you share, I'm assuming you've got knowledge. Otherwise, it wouldn't be your passion.
Exactly.
Right?
You have to have that. The passion equals knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge equals passion, and that's the whole game. But going back to the equipment, I mean, I want to really emphasize that part is like if you have a message that you want to put out to the world, put it out. Don't hold back because of technology, of not having the right hardware or even software to do it. I think something is ringing.
It's your phone over there.
My phone. Oh,
reminding you that you need to do something.
I'll be
See,
back.
in a world full of technology and equipment, sometimes you have this as well. But that's the good part about doing a podcast, right?
Yeah.
You can see.
I'm back. And don't get, this is the other thing.
Be natural.
Be natural. The other thing that can happen is the unexpected. And actually, let me just say, the unexpected happens all the time. And we've had quite some experiences throughout these 70 episodes that we've done that we'll talk about in a bit that kind of got us used to not being too worried about stuff that just happens.
From the dog
podcast.
Interfering to a phone.
Which is part of the equipment too. The phones are part of the equipment.
Not the dog so much.
So going back to the recording equipment, I think, when we started it was the phone. I already said that, but, we moved on to afterwards buying another recorder, which was the Zoom H6, which is a very good quality recorder with the benefit of that one that I liked a lot was the mobility of it because it's
very
small little recorder. And you were still able to get amazing sound. We still have it. I even thought about, once I got the Rodecaster, I'm like, do I really need this one? But I kept it anyways because I felt like it did such a good job for us for like 2 to 3 years, I think, that we were using it.
I'll use it for my own things.
And it's so easy to use that I said, no, I want to keep that as a backup or as, if we need to add extra mics to it. So that's the other part of the equipment that you can do is now that we have the Zoom H6 and now we have the Rodecaster, we could actually put these two together and make them work for our benefit. But going back to the Zoom H6, it's a great little device. You can hook up to 4 XLR mics, which the XLR mics are the ones that you usually see on stages that have, the bigger connection, I guess, if I'm talking to people who don't know about technical stuff. So it's usually the mics that you see people using on stage that have the wire, that have that extra little bigger connection. They're what they call phantom powered, meaning that they need extra little power to them so that they work.
Yeah.
But the H6 allows you to have 4 of those. Actually, it allows you to have 6. The top part of the H6 recorder has a adapter that you can get, or you can actually attach different adapters to it.
And it allows you to add
one of those
more.
adapters, you can actually add 2 more lines in. So that makes you a total of 6 microphones that you can use with that.
That's
Again,
awesome.
if you're thinking about doing a podcast where you're going to be going to the location to speak with your guest, just go remotely and you don't have a studio per se, or you just want to have a good recorder, period. That is a damn good recorder. Is not the cheapest thing ever. Obviously, if you have a phone already, that's going to be the cheapest way to go. This is, I guess, the next step. It's here in Canada, I think it's going to run you about $200 to $300. Nowadays, you can pick one of those up if you want to go, brand new, or if you want to go secondhand. Trust me, getting one of these guys secondhand might not be a bad idea because they last. These are workhorses. They will last for a long time. So if somebody just used it for a year, let's say,
they're in pretty good condition.
Listen, honestly, ours, we've used it for over 2 years. And
it's amazing.
It's brand new.
Yeah.
It's honestly brand new. Never had an issue with it. And it's good. So if I sold that one and anybody got that one, it's like buying a brand new one.
Yeah.
So, that's also a consideration, buying a secondhand to start off, right? To see if this whole podcast adventure is going to be the right one. Start off with that. And then we're going to get into, before we move into the Rodecaster, which is the latest new toy and shiny and full of colors, we're going to talk a little bit about the microphones. So again, there's so many microphones out there. There's so many choices. I mean, you can go on to either Amazon or your local sound store and you can search. There's just so many. Make a decision based on what you need and based on the price point that you can afford. If you can afford a $100 microphone, then go with that. If you can only afford a $20 one, go with that. If you want to go higher up and get you can go crazy. You can go pretty crazy with these things. It can get expensive or, jeez, we have so many alarms going on today. I don't know.
You can tell who's the tech guy here.
I know. It's like alarm village here. So you can get, microphones you can go from a $20 microphone to a $2,000 microphone. They can get expensive.
Yeah.
But
the ultimate question is, do you need them?
Okay. This is the point. The message is the important part. The equipment will make it sound better, right? So if you do get a much better microphone, obviously your sound is going to come out a lot better. If you get a nicer recording device, it's going to also make it better. So I would advise to start it off the whatever way you can and then gauge it. See if this is what you like doing, because sometimes people have an idea, I'm going to start a podcast as well. And it's not for everybody. Not everybody's used to being in front of a mic. Not everybody's used to being in front of a camera. You need to see if that fits your personality and if it works for you, right? And this is a game that it takes a long time.
It requires commitment.
You don't think that you're going to start a podcast today and then you're going to get super famous and you're going to be the guy that does the podcast. No, it's not. Most likely, not to burst anybody's bubble, but it is what it is. There's a lot of people doing this. There's a lot of voices out there. There's a lot of attention to a lot of different places. Make sure that you understand that. Focus on your audience. Focus on who you know and focus on the people that are starting to follow you. And it will grow eventually. Put out good material.
It will,
But make sure that you want to get your feet wet first. Try it out with the least investment possible, and then once you get that to that point where you feel like, you know what, I like this is pretty cool, I'm having fun doing this, I'm getting an audience, I'm liking it, so today I'm gonna buy a mic, and tomorrow I'm gonna buy a better recorder, and the next day I'm gonna buy 2 mics because now I want to have guests, and go like that. That's my advice. That's, if anybody's starting. I've seen online a lot of people that have the post that says, I'm starting my podcast, I'm ready to start. And you see the equipment they bought. They bought all
crazy.
The best mics, the Roadcasters. I'm like, oh my God, there's at least $3,000 there.
Wow.
And it's a project that they're just literally going to start.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen in 6 months when you're going to get fed up with it and you find out that you don't enjoy doing it?
You sell the equipment?
You're going to sell the equipment. You might not lose everything, but you're going to,
lose a little
like,
bit. Yeah.
Why? Why are you going to do that? Taste the waters first. Right? Make sure that it's something that you like. I mean, we started with our phone mics, and then we moved
to these guys.
We moved to these guys, which actually,
I love them.
Now here's the thing. Now here's the crazy one. These mics that we got, and I'm the Sennheisers. I always forget the name. They're very good mics. They're almost like the mics that you see a lot on when people go on stage. Comedians use it and all that. They're strong. They're robust. They can take a hit and they're gonna be okay. The sound
really
quality
like it,
is really good, but they're expensive, right? I picked this little guy up.
That's the Rode one.
That looks amazing. The sound is amazing, and the
awesome.
price is even better because it's about $100 and something for this one, and the quality is.
You don't need better than that.
Why do you need any better?
Yeah.
And I know that if we get some audio guy out there that's watching this and going, oh, that mic, that's not good. That you can get this one and the Shure and the whatevers. And
but for the purpose of podcasting, it's awesome.
Yes, it is. it's. I think this is at the start of that higher level already.
Yeah.
The sound that you're getting this. Can you get a much better mic? What are radio stations using for mic? Yeah, of course. You can get all the big ass mics that will cost you $500, $600, $800. Guess what? I can then buy 4 of these with that same money. And now I have a full podcast setup that I can have guests in as opposed to just one mic that's really, really good. And
you won't be able to tell the difference.
It is what it is. If you're not an audio engineer, most people that are listening to your podcast won't even know the difference between this one and that one.
That's true.
So again, what can you afford? What do you want to get? What's the quality you want to have? Those are all things that you need to get. And then, the last piece of equipment that we got for the podcast was the Rodecaster. This is from Rode as well. And all it is a place where your mics are going to connect. So you can have up to 4 mics here. You can connect via Bluetooth as well. You can have a phone, which is pretty cool if you want to do, if you want to call in a guest or have somebody, let's say you have a show, you have a phone number that you can put out and you're doing it live and you want to be able to connect with someone and somebody can call into the show. And this way, it's like a full-blown radio station like that. And you also have 8 keypads with sound effects that you can put in as well. So it's not only sound effects, but you can put in music. You can put in whatever you want. You know what I mean? You can put the wah, wah, wah. But you can put, like we have a track for the song that we have here for our podcast, so that if we want to do, have something playing in the background so it's not just our voices. And some people might feel comfortable having something playing in the background. It makes it a little bit easier if you're just starting off. That's another little tip if you want. In most cases, people don't have music playing. But nonetheless, this is what it does in a nutshell. Obviously, the settings that you can do, you can go in there and change every mic to have a different setting depending on the type of voice that the person has. You can. There's just a lot of little things you can do. Yeah. But in a nutshell, this is where you connect your mics. This is where you can get some sound effects. This is where you can connect your computer and your set. But this is an expensive puppy, right?
Yeah.
This is going to run you
That one is.
on a higher bracket. If after a year, so we got it after almost 2 years of doing our
Almost 2
podcast.
years.
And let's just put this little disclaimer here. We don't use it just for our podcast. We have clients that we help, them
With their
create
own
their own
podcasts.
podcast.
Yeah.
So we use all of this technology for them as well. So we're not just investing for the Creative Spin podcast. We're investing
Yeah.
for the company to make, other podcasts
To
happen.
offer that
To
service.
offer that service as well. So that's why it made sense for us. And it might not make sense for most people that are just starting a podcast out of fun, let's say. Might not be the case.
So the Zoom might be is it called the Zoom?
The Zoom
Yeah.
might be the next step. The next step. I honestly think with these new phones,
You don't even need the Zoom.
honestly, guys, it's unbelievable how much good sorry, I just saw a message and I got distracted. This is why, another point, don't get distracted by your phone. Always put your phone on the side because it's going to distract you, man. It's crazy. But talking about phones, the quality you can get from this phone is unfreaking believable. From an audio perspective and now from a video perspective too.
That's true.
Speaking of video, you want to step it up another little step here is get cameras to record your podcast. You don't have to get cameras. You
No,
can start with your
audio will
phone.
do.
Again. No, but you can start with your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So switch your phone on and have a recording while you're doing your podcast. And now all of a sudden you have a video that you can put onto YouTube as well. Listen, YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world right now. You want to have your stuff on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
So just do it. That's my advice. Equipment aside, and the lights too. We got to look at the lights. The lights are it's important. I mean, if you're putting video, then now you're going to need lights because otherwise if you get a camera or a phone recording and people can't really see your face,
That's the problem. Yeah.
you might just want to do that. But hey, if you don't want to spend the money, get yourself in front of a window, record during the day, get natural light onto you.
And it will work.
And it will work even better.
Yeah.
It looks natural.
Yeah.
So no excuses, guys. Start your podcast.
Yeah.
That's the
these
bottom line.
lights can actually bother your eyes, but that's a
Yeah,
me thing.
Anna's not a fan of these lights.
No.
She does not like them. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the topics of conversation that you want to have on your podcast. Our topics have always been the creative side, the business side, and we're kind of sticking to those. And those have been it since the beginning.
Because it's been the purpose of this podcast.
Exactly. So you need to find out what you want to be talking about and don't change, don't go all over the place. A lot of people have a lot of ideas, as do we, and we want to talk about different things. That's why, like in our sense, we wanted to separate the Creative Spin podcast from the Creative 7 channel, which is our company, because we felt like it was two different things.
Yeah.
And it suffered a lot and it's still suffering because we had the following on our Creative 7. I'm getting all confused with the 7 and the spins. But the Creative 7 Inc. channel, which is our company channel, that's where we started the podcast. We had a pretty good following there. So
And
when we decided to switch things over and divide things, even though it makes a lot of sense and we're going to continue doing that, we lost a lot of people that were used to watching us on the other channel because they're still watching us, but they're probably not subscribed yet. Or, there's always that you need to take into account. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, think very much so about this part of where it's going to be residing, what's the name, and what's the topic of conversation so it doesn't get confused. We're keeping the Creative Spin podcast to talk about creativeness, creative people, creative business people, entrepreneurs. That is the Creative Spin. Anything to do with tech, with marketing, with social media, with designing, with anything like that, we're going to keep it to Creative 7. So we're making sure that those topics are on their own little village. And that's the other thing is you don't want to confuse your audience by one day having a podcast to talk about Lego sets and the other day you're talking about marketing and the other day you're talking about food or music. Keep it consistent because you need to understand that your audience, the people that are going to be listening to you, are going to be listening to what you're talking about, what's
You
the
have to
topic of
offer.
conversation. So you need to keep that consistent.
What do you have to offer?
Exactly. The other aspect is guests. This is the tricky one, I have to say. Having guests is really cool, but it's a lot of work to get them.
Yeah.
So make a list. Start off by making a wish list of all the guests that you want to have on your podcast that can bring value to the topic of conversation that you're going to have on your podcast. So make that list and include people that you know for sure are going to say okay because they're your friends or your family or your
And then
neighbor or whatever.
yeah.
And you know that they will bring in good content to your podcast. But also put people that you want to have, like
Yeah.
you wish you could have that person one day in your podcast, because that will help you get ready for that day, you know, and sending out an email, asking if they want to be part of your podcast. That might not be answered right away. That might take a few weeks for them to get back to you. They might want to go check your channel to see what you talk about, if it's a good fit for them too.
They may not have an interest.
They might not even like doing podcasts. So
Yeah.
you need to take that in consideration. Somebody that says no to a podcast, to being on your podcast, a lot of times, don't take it the wrong way, because a lot of times they don't feel comfortable being on a podcast. Not everybody's comfortable being on.
Or they may feel like they have nothing to contribute to that specific podcast, even if they do. Like it might just be a personal thing, right?
It might just be a personal
Yeah.
thing. Not everybody's going to be not saying no to your request just because they don't like you. Don't take it
No,
personally.
sometimes it's a personal thing for them.
It's a personal thing, and it could be even a time thing.
Yeah.
I've, even for some of our guests, I've been after them, quote unquote, for a while, and then we ended up doing it months or even a year later. I'm thinking about one of the podcasts that we just released about a month ago.
Yeah.
With Louis Pavao.
It took, exactly.
He was my first guest
Yeah.
of a podcast that never aired. So that can give you some context. The first podcast I recorded, things didn't go right.
Yeah.
Technically, I wasn't, it was the first one. And I think, I can't remember what happened, but I know
there was some
I know there was
issue.
a technical issue and the voice didn't come out right, or something went off with one of the mics or something like that. So that guest ended up only coming back 2 years later.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they're busy too.
Because they've been busy and I've been busy. And then when I could do it, he couldn't do it. And when he could do it, I couldn't do it. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. Give your guests a warm welcome. And before you start talking, a little secret that I found out from listening to other people doing podcasts and what they used to do. Actually, one of them was Joe Rogan. He does that a lot. He actually has dinner with his guests the day before.
Where's my
So
dinner?
I'll cook it later on tonight. And I'm kind of doing it in reverse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shortchanged
But,
here.
you don't have to go to an extent, obviously, of having dinner with the person the day before and things like that. But what having a conversation before you actually go and hit the record button.
Have a coffee or something.
Yeah, just sit down, have a coffee, no mics. Or even if you're sitting down where you're going to record, don't start recording right away.
Yeah.
That's
Don't turn on the damn lights.
Don't turn on the damn lights. Don't switch on the microphone. Put the microphone to the side. You want to get that person comfortable. You need to understand that your guest might not be used to being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
They're not comfortable the moment they see a microphone, the moment they see cameras and lights. It can get intimidating for a lot of people.
Even though it's not live, but they have that conscience that it will eventually become a live video.
You're actually touching on a very good point. If you're not doing it live, which in most cases you're not going to, just let them know that. Let them know, don't worry. This isn't live.
We'll edit.
If something goes wrong, we'll edit it. We'll take it out. Don't worry so much. Right there, you're going to see your guests going, okay, that's going to be cool. Because now they're not so worried anymore, right? In my podcast, I might tell them that, but I always do everything in one shot. I'm crazy like that. I mean, phones can start ringing and we just deal with the situation. But again, I'm doing that because I've been, doing podcasting for a while. My background
background
in radio and all of that, even though it wasn't a long time, it still gave me a little bit of a background. And now I'm used to it. So it's a little bit different. If you're starting off, if your guest never has participated in anything to do with recording of a podcast or an audio, they're not going to be comfortable. So by saying that you can edit afterwards, they're going to be a lot more comfortable and at ease. And the conversation is going to flow a lot better afterwards, because before you start recording, all of those questions and comments and conversations you're going to have before, those are probably going to be part of your podcast. And it's interesting how many interviews I've done, that questions that I end up asking afterwards in the podcast, I had never thought about them until I had that conversation prior to the recording.
Brought it up.
Because while I was talking to that guest, he or she might have said something. I go, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know that happened. So then now you have a little bit more information that you can bring into your podcast.
And if I can add something to that, because I know you do this.
I do.
You do this. Don't give a guest a list of questions.
Okay. It depends on who's. I have to be. I
love the flow of conversation.
Okay, but I have to say something when it comes to that. I agree with you 100%. But if you're not that type of podcast host, then prepare the questions and have the questions ready for your guest.
Oh, no. What I'm saying is, don't give them too much time to think about the questions.
Okay.
Because then it flows naturally, right?
And now I'm going to go into the explanation as to why I don't like giving questions to my guests. I think that if I'm inviting someone to talk about a subject that they know what to talk about, like if this guy is coming in to talk about what it is to be an actor, he's an actor. If I'm going to ask him questions about what he does in his life, he knows how to answer.
Prepare.
He doesn't need to prepare. No. The problem that I see when you give people questions for them to rehearse or to be thinking about it is that they're going to do that. They're going to go the extra mile. It's just human nature. They're going to go, the first question is going to be about this. Yeah. Let me go and research and do all of that. They're going to try to memorize the answer. So when you ask them the question, they're going to try to...
It doesn't sound natural.
My answer is going to be this way, and I am going to sound like a robot. And then...
But then if they get interrupted because they say something interesting, they sort of lose
the train of thought.
Yeah, because it's like students in school when they memorize things and you cut them in middle of sentence, they have to start again, otherwise they don't remember.
Exactly.
And
so that's where I kind of avoid
that natural flow, because it's what people like,
and
they're going to enjoy it more, I think.
Absolutely. And the natural flow also comes from your questions. So when you have your questions set, but please don't keep those set on stone. An example is, I'm interviewing Anna, and I have...
You never give me anything.
Okay, I didn't give you the questions, but I do have questions lined up, right? Yeah. And I'm asking you about something. And within your answer, you started saying something that was really interesting.
That you want to know more about.
That I want to dig in there, because, wow, that's pretty cool. I want to find out more about that. But if I'm going to go with what the script of questions I have in front of me...
You may not have space for that.
Well, no, because that was a surprise. I didn't even know you were going to talk about that. Yeah. So now all of a sudden you stop talking, and technically when you stop talking, I got to ask you something else.
So, next question.
So I'm going to jump into the next question, and I'm going to totally disregard the cool thing that she was just talking about, in which I wanted to kind of get a little bit more information and get the conversation going.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to lose a good opportunity for a good conversation just because you're following the script. Guys, this is podcasting.
Have notes in front of you.
This is not, you don't have 5 minutes to do the interview, right?
Which was, if I might say so, which was something I used to hate when I did radio.
Okay,
right?
but...
Because you kept looking at that.
Those rules don't apply here.
Yeah, don't worry. Let it flow.
And if you do think you're going to apply those set rules, get into radio. Stop podcasting. Yeah. So podcasting is about having a conversation, and so don't have those questions down, and it needs to be, no, have them down. Make sure you know. Make sure you get to ask those topics, those questions. But please
have them as notes written down.
Do yourself a favor, your audience a favor. Go with the conversation. Don't let the conversation fall flat and be like a hard stop, and it started the next question, a hard stop, next question. it's just, it gets tired. It doesn't
really
become
does.
a conversation anymore.
Yeah, it's true.
And don't be worried. This is another thing that me and you do a lot, but we kind of do it, hopefully, it doesn't annoy people too much. Talking a little bit over the person is okay. Don't completely talk over when she's speaking. I can't just go onto the mic and don't do that. That's not the right way to do it. But in any conversation, think about it. If you're at a dinner table, if you're at any event and you're speaking to someone, well, the whole speaking thing, conversation thing
It's
is being
that.
able, it's the back and forth. It's it's adding that, it's adding the, and asking the question over the other one because you want to make a point or you don't want to forget something. Keep that conversation going. Don't just go, Anna, how was your day?
And sometimes you start a sentence, but you notice that the person still has something else to say and you wait, right? So that's part.
This is really uncomfortable because if I'm just going to be here looking at my guest,
my Lord,
the guest is going to be so damn uncomfortable that
It
they're going to start
intimidates you.
They're going to get nervous.
Yeah,
and when
it
they get nervous, they're going to
intimidates you.
forget.
Yeah.
And which brings me to this other point. When you notice your guest is getting nervous, jump in, man.
yeah.
Just save them from that quote unquote embarrassment, because it's not that they don't know what they're talking about. There's a lot of stuff going on. And their train of thought might have kind of bounced to another lane and now they lost what they were. Don't just let them drown on the other end. You're seeing them there kind of thinking about a word, and
Sometimes I forget where I'm going with conversations, and I say it. I just forgot what I was going with
Exactly.
this. Now imagine if you just kept staring at me the way you were. I'm
it's
like,
pretty intimidating.
okay, but there you go. That happens. It's human to, stop to think about stuff, to sometimes forget, to get distracted because something just caught your attention when you were in the middle of a sentence. It is human, right? And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So after all of that, the last thing you have to do is think about your marketing. So how are you going to get the word out? You know what? Honestly, if you're just starting something off out of pure joy, if you just wanted to start a podcast, don't go too crazy. That's the best advice I can get you. Don't go too crazy. Share it with your Facebook group or your
Use
LinkedIn.
your platforms
Use the platforms you
yeah.
have right now. People, if they like it, they'll spread the word themselves. Let that happen organically. If you're doing it as a company and you want to really make it reach more and more people, then you're going to have to go into a marketing strategy. You're probably going to have to spend some money in getting advertising for it to spread the word. You're going to need somebody to chop little bits and parts of your podcast to get it out to more places. There's all of these little tricks that you can do to get it out there, right? But honestly, the best marketing you can do when you're starting your podcast is have good material, have a good message, be yourself, have fun, and things will happen organically.
Yeah, I
Were
agree.
you going to sneeze?
I
Okay.
Hey, I tried to look that way.
I saw her going back, and I'm like, I just took a shower this morning. I'm not stinking. Jeez.
You know that thing that you think you're going to sneeze, but then you don't sneeze, but then you feel like you're going to sneeze.
And if you sneeze in your podcast, it's absolutely fine.
Why did you point it out? I was looking that way.
Because we're real here, man. It's the real stuff.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Do you know that we've been talking for 44 minutes?
Damn, we talk. Really?
Dude, and then people say, I don't get it how Joe Rogan could go 3 hours.
Oh, I do.
We can go 6 hours, man. No problem.
Oh, man.
Anytime.
I do.
But anyways, Anna, thank you so much for being a co-host to
My
this
pleasure.
podcast for so many years and episodes. And hopefully in 40 years from now, we'll still be thanking you for being here. You'll be an old lady.
Pleasure.
You'll be
Beside an old man.
You'll be speaking this way, of course. It's been a pleasure.
Why is it that one way or another, every single episode I do with you, you find a way of calling me old?
I think it's become part of the show.
Yeah. I mean, we even had someone from Australia commenting on that one day. So
Listen,
oh man,
you know when I said you should keep yourself to a specific topic and you can't really change? Listen, this is part of that topic of this show.
calling me old is part of the Creative Spin podcast.
I don't call you old.
Yeah, you just did.
I just make some fun. I just have some fun. We
some
have fun.
episodes, I can prove it to you. I am called the old lady.
Okay,
Today you were
listen, when I call you an old lady, it's such a tender, nice,
Are we done?
cute way of saying something and acknowledging that all right, guys, thank you so much for being here in the Creative Spin podcast.
70 episodes.
70 episodes. Jeez Louise. Let's keep on going, old lady. All right, we'll catch you on the next one.